We've just had a brutal reminder by US President Donald Trump, a real wake-up for Australia too, that this world isn't run by fine ideals, certainly not now. It's run by power. The rules are made by the men with the guns, as we saw when Trump met Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska on Friday and fawned on him. And today, European leaders are rushing to Washington to talk Trump into not giving in to Russia. The leaders of Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Finland, plus others have dropped everything to save the West from danger. This is unprecedented, this meeting. They're going to back up Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky, who's also on his way today to save what's left of his country. And all this follows Trump's disastrous meeting with Putin. I want to go through what Trump did, but not just to show how he was humiliated, but, to be fair and balanced, also show what tiny signs there were at this summit that peace in Ukraine could, despite everything, finally come, and what it would now look like, and what a terrible price Ukraine must now pay for the weakness of the West. Now, I had thought before this meeting that Donald Trump had finally learned that Putin can't be trusted. I mean, Putin had launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine 3 years ago, just the latest country he's invaded, committed shocking war crimes against civilians and abducted almost 20,000 Ukrainian children. Yet Trump at first blamed Ukraine for getting invaded and yelled at its president, threw him out of the White House, and even froze armed deliveries to Ukraine for a while until he finally seemed to see sense. And lately, Trump has instead called Putin's talk of wanting peace just, excuse the language, bullshit. And just a week ago, he demanded an immediate ceasefire or else.
Will Russia face any consequences if Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday?
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will the consequences
there will be?
Sanctions, tariffs?
There will be, I don't have to say, there will be very severe consequences.
Yeah. So imagine the shock on Friday when Trump instead had US soldiers in Alaska kneel down in front of Putin's plane to roll out the red carpet for this wanted war criminal, and even applauded Putin as the Russian despot walked towards him, and invited him to hop into Trump's own car as a sign of special favour. And right there, Donald Trump gave Putin one of the things he most wanted: honour in the eyes of the world and the eyes of watching Russians. Honour from the supposed leader of the free world. Equal standing. It got worse. The Russians said these peace talks would last 6 or 7 hours. Instead, they ended after less than 3, and a lunch in honour of Putin was scrapped. And then came a bizarre press conference, in which Putin actually spoke first, and for twice as long as Trump, who then, almost unprecedentedly for this showman, refused to take questions, outraging the journalists. And no wonder Trump didn't want questions. The fact is, Putin had given him nothing except smoke. No ceasefire, no peace, just an outrageous demand to not just keep all the territory that his army has captured in Ukraine, except for a couple of scraps north around Sumy and Kharkiv, but for Ukraine then to hand over the rest of 2 Donbass provinces Russia still hasn't managed to take, either in 2014, the darker area there, or now the unconquered territory that includes Ukraine's fortress belt cities that are its main defences.
We had a very productive meeting. There were many points that we agreed on, most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway. So there's no deal until there's a deal.
And even after Putin lowered the boom, Trump still treated him like a friend. Let Putin kick the can down the road until some other meeting sometime in Moscow we could really show off it while attacking Ukraine in the meantime.
We'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening.
Gone was Trump's threat to impose sanctions, and in Russia, on Putin's state TV, his favourite commentators were gloating.
но дорожка красная стелится в знак высочайшего уважения поэтому Трамп испугался, вот, что его просто нагнут. То есть это была еще одна победа Путина, который не отошел, вот, ну, ни на шаг.
So how did Putin once again get Trump eating out of his hand? Let's leave aside conspiracy theories that Putin's got compromising material. One, it turns out that Putin did offer tiny concessions, apparent concessions, which I will get to. But mostly it was pure flattery to an American president who's the most praise-hungry I've ever seen, and the biggest sucker for men of power. I mean, Trump just worships power. Not just Putin, he admires China's dictator. In fact, on the way to this summit, he even posted from his airplane that he'd gotten a call from the dictator of Belarus, a Putin crony, and called this dictator highly respected. And in the Alaska meeting and the press conference afterwards, Putin talked to Trump about all the deals that they could do on business, on space, on the Arctic. You know how Trump adores deals. And he told Trump how they both led great nations. Putin also flattered Trump by repeating his favourite political boast that Putin would never have invaded Ukraine had Trump been president, and not that loser Joe Biden.
Today, when President Trump saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war. And I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. I can confirm that.
And Trump just sucked it up.
I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir.
And get this, Donald Trump even boasted later on Fox News that Putin had told him, yes, Donald, you have made America great again. And Trump actually took this war criminal's crude flattery as the highest praise.
Vladimir said just a little while ago, he said, I've never seen anybody do so much so fast. He said, your country is like hot as a pistol. And a year ago, he thought it was dead. Everybody thought it was dead.
It was that obvious and that sick. Now, it did seem at first that Putin had not offered Trump any concessions, that he'd called Trump's bluff and said that if he wanted a deal, a peace deal, he just had to give in. But it is true that this was the first time that I can remember that Putin referred to Ukraine as a country and not simply some fictional entity that was really Russian. And more significantly, Putin even suggested that Ukraine would need security guarantees if it did hand over territory to Russia. Guarantees to dissuade Russia from invading a third time once it had rebuilt its strength.
I agree with President Trump, as he has said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well.
Now, Trump's chief negotiator with Russia, the pro-Russian Steve Witkoff, the most incompetent negotiator in the world, said yesterday that this would involve America offering guarantees, much like Article 5 in NATO, that an attack on Ukraine by Russia would be treated like an attack on the United States and Europe.
We were able to win the following concession, that the United States could offer Article 5-like protection, which was the first time we had ever heard the Russians agree to that.
So I'm assuming this is the deal that Zelensky and the European leaders will discuss overnight with Trump. Not just how much territory to hand over to Putin, but how this guarantee is actually going to work. Because there's a huge catch. For one, a guarantee of peace from Putin, that's worth nothing. I mean, it's lied before, and after all, you know, Russia, the US and Europe all guaranteed Ukraine's safety in 1995 in exchange for its nuclear weapons if it gave them up. Ukraine did that and just got stabbed in the back. And what's Donald Trump's word worth now too? So no wonder European leaders are rushing to Washington. And it's not just Ukraine's safety that's at stake here. All those other countries that Russia made part of its old Soviet Union are also in danger, now that the West has shown it can't even save Ukraine. Putin's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov actually rubbed that in by turning up to Alaska with a message printed on his sweater. He's on the far left here. CCP, or CCCP, that's the Cyrillic acronym for the Soviet Union, which once occupied not just Ukraine, but Latvia and Lithuania and Estonia and Moldova and more countries that are now going to fear what he will do next. So Trump caved into Putin, even though Russia has less than half its population and an economy no bigger than Spain's. He gave in to the flattery of a killer and to his lethal power, and hours ago put the heat on Ukraine's president instead, posting President Zelensky can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to, or he can continue to fight. Remember how it started. No getting back Crimea. That's Obama giving Crimea, taken by Russia 12 years ago without a shot being fired, said Trump. And there's no going into NATO by Ukraine in capital letters, which Ukraine desperately wants for its safety. So the free world must now weep, because any peace now in Ukraine is going to come at a huge cost.